News Falls Count Anywhere, a part of the Earnestly podcast. I'm your host, Ernest EJ Christian, coming to you Tuesday, May 13th, 2025. It's a good day today, actually. A lot of stuff out here in the wrestling world, of course, as we are now have Backlash in the rearview mirror. Of course, joining my co-host, Rob the Genius, of course. One third of the Mindless Wrestling podcast, which says slower. 1/3 of the Mindless Wrestling podcast. Also the host of the Rob the Genius podcast. And many other things he does. Very busy guy on the podcast circuit these days. Rob the Genius, what's up, buddy?
Yeah, how you doing?
I see you. First off, happy birthday, Rob the Genius. Is that what, 51?
51, yes.
And for your birthday, you got a Knicks on the verge of going to the conference finals. I mean, no Jason Tatum, obviously, for the rest of the playoffs.
Yeah.
Possibly next year too, also. But things looking good for New York, man. You run your Jalen Brunson. If you're watching on YouTube, of course, on youtube.com/Earnestly Pod, you can see Mr. Robert Genius wearing his Jalen Brunson jersey here that I was told he was gifted by himself.
Yes, it was my birthday present to myself, and because listen, I'm a Knicks fan, I'm a Commanders fan, and for a long time, there hasn't been anybody on that team, on either team, worth buying a jersey for.
That's the damn truth.
So this year, earlier this year, I got a Jaden Daniels Commanders jersey, and so now I got myself a Jalen Brunson Knicks jersey.
Well, you're having a good year right now. The Commanders were one game from the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
the Knicks might be another series for the finals if they win tomorrow night. So things are looking good for you, Rob, right now in the sports world, huh?
And yeah, I was going into last night. I figured that honestly, I didn't think we were going because
neither did I.
Well, because I figured because the Celtics got up by 20 in the first three games, but in game 3 they didn't blow the lead, right? So game 3 they just finished us off. So I thought they had figured us out, and from here on out it was just going to be they were just going to put us out of our misery, so to speak. But and then last night there were some times like they got up double digits several times, and it looked like they were gonna run away with it. And then, but we kept coming back, and then got up in the fourth quarter, and the Tatum thing, it sucks, and and hoping he gets back as soon as possible.
Yeah, you hate to see that, man. Look, I've been critical of Tatum through the years, but it's more critical in terms of not him as a kid. I mean, he's a good kid, obviously, but more so about you just want to see that dog in him, I always say. But there's no doubt he's a great player, top 10 player in the league, probably a fringe top 5 guy in the league. And I look, I think that injury, I stated in the podcast earlier, I think that injury is going to change the landscape of the championship picture for the next 2 years, because it confirmed today is Achilles. Achilles is typically a 9-12 month injury. So you do the math there, of course. You're a math guy. That's pretty much at the earliest next year, All-Star break or post All-Star break, which, if you're the Celtics, do you even bother trying to hold on for that? And on top of that, with their desire with the new ownership group to break up the team or at least cut some payroll, this injury may actually exacerbate that now. So I think the entire championship picture in general across the league has not been changed because this one guy.
Yeah. So I mean, usually if it's the minimum amount of time, that's 9 months. But that would put them at
February,
basically all of next season. Yeah, because
February.
So, or at least all of he'd be back for the playoffs if they made it in the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, they're good enough for the roster. If they keep the roster together right now without Tatum, they're good enough to make the playoffs. Still.
Yeah. So another question is, how old are some of their guys? I know Jerry Holiday's
the one that's old. He's 34, but he's stuck. That contract is bad now, and he aged really bad this year.
Okay.
He's had a down year this year, so that'd be a guy they're going to try to move. But the problem is he has multiple years on the contract left, and that's not an attractive contract unless a team wants to eat some salary for the next 3 years. So,
Porzingis is 29.
Yeah, Porzingis 29, Jalen Brown's 28, Derek White's 30. So the other guys still in the relative prime. So, but the Tatum injury definitely changes the conversation for the time being. But
Yeah, and then like what do you do with like Al Horford? Does he retire or does he?
well, he's a free agent anyway. He's gonna be off the books, so he may come back for
Okay,
less money. So he's not gonna be a significant. He won't be a significant salary changer.
okay.
Um, that being said, like I'm tortured about this thing because I don't hate. People think I hate the Knicks. I'm a Heat fan. I don't hate the Knicks. I don't. Um, I do have bad feelings of the Knicks because of how they, treated Patrick Ewing, after he left. When that whole Heat Knicks rivalry was a thing back in the late '90s, yeah, I'm pro Heat all day. But I was never one of those guys that people that hated the Knicks as a result. When Heat lost the Knicks, like in '98 and '99, the rest of the way I root for the Knicks to win a title. Mainly because I want Pat Ewing to win a title. Because I'm a big Patrick Ewing fan. When as a kid, even the Heat before Pat Riley came here, I was a Heat fan. I didn't, I he was never getting far. So, the Knicks, I hated Jordan as a kid. So I went for the Knicks to win the championships. In 94 against Houston, we were heavily for the Knicks win that title in 94. My ire of the Knicks right now is the fact that they have the way they treat Ewing out the door. And then I am not a James Dolan fan whatsoever. So it's very easy for me to really hate your owner too. On top of that, even though he does spend money, he's just very meddling in general.
Oh, no, he stinks. I can't. Nobody likes him. Basically, it's kind of we root for the team in spite of him. Nobody likes him.
Right. So I mean, I'm not tortured because I'm happy for Knicks fans and whatnot. I hate Boston. Obviously, I've always hated Boston. There's a respect there, but always hated Boston. But it is what it is. So. Hope you guys do well. I think you guys might be the favorites from the East now at this point. Right now, Indiana's came back. They were down by 19, not up by 4 now against Cleveland. And went to the locker room. So as a recording, so it looks like Indiana is in the driver's seat now to close out the series tonight. It looks like now. So
yeah,
Pacers, Knicks, man. Oh my God.
Oh yeah, man. Listen,
and we saw it last year in the second round, but the stakes are higher now if this happens.
Yeah, and man, put it this way, I'm much for me, Indiana is the most hated rival.
Is it? Are they really?
For me. Because I mean the Bulls, I mean
it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean the Bulls are Bulls, right? I mean it right, and I mean Jordan was so great that I mean it's hard to unless you're a Pistons fan, it's hard to hate the Bulls, right? And Boston, I never hated Boston. Yeah, I think I've talked about before. I once, just having heard John Thompson talk about the Celtics organization so glowingly, and all their history and all of that. It's for me, it was hard to hate the Celtics. So, I mean, yeah, for me, it's Indiana because and it's mainly because of Reggie, and and all those games they had against each other in the playoffs. But because I hate Reggie to this day, and look, I celebrate Malice at the Palace. Whenever they show it, because that prevented him from his last chance to win a title was
that Indiana team was really good. That Indiana team could have won a title that year.
Yep, but it went down the drain thanks to Malice at the Palace.
Yeah. Anyway, I know you guys want to hear wrestling now with 10 minutes of the podcast, but we got a lot to talk about today. We're going to discuss a couple of things here. We're actually going to get a chance to finally review the top 50 WrestleMania matches rankings that WWE put out throughout the WrestleMania season that concluded the week of WrestleMania. We finally get the chance to react to it in a second. We continue our series of 3 people who shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, part 7 by OVW Dropout. There will be one more part to do after this week, and then we'll be done with that as well too. But and also remember the late Sabu, ECW legend Sabu, who passed away this weekend. First things first, did you watch any Raw last night by any chance?
What was I doing?
Because nothing to me stood out for Raw last night, other than maybe the.
Well, I was mainly watching. I was mainly watching the Knicks game. So
yeah, I was too. And I already told how I consume Raw and SmackDown every week. I don't watch the entire shows unless I have to. What I do is I do I go on YouTube, I find the recaps, and if the segments are interesting to me to dive in more into it, I'll do that as well. But yeah, the only thing that stood out to me last night was two things really. Number one, we found out last night Gunther will face the winner of the Jey Uso Logan Paul match
Yeah.
in June on Raw in June. First, I think it's the second Raw of June, and that'll be of course the Jey Uso Logan Paul match will take place not this Saturday, but the following Saturday on the Sunday's main event in Tampa, which I wanted to go to, but I have other plans. But the other thing that stood out for me last night was the continued chaos in the CM Punk, Paul Heyman, Seth Rollins, Braun Breaker whole thing. Jey Uso's involved now. Sami Zayn's involved now. And just looking at I think the core of this feud right now is the relationship between CM Punk and Paul Heyman. And again, when they were together, I was not watching the product at the time. So I always looked at when I look at Paul Heyman guys. To me, the two guys that come to me first are Lesnar and Roman. Wasn't until the whole thing leading up to WrestleMania this year where the Punk Heyman thing became really pronounced again. And you see the complication of that. Look, CM Punk, not the greatest guy. Obviously, in ring, he's older now, but that dude on the stick makes you feel, man. And even last night, watch that promo, talk about Paul Heyman and how fat he is, and then call him a penguin and all that stuff. That he made you feel, man. I mean, I think this is the way to go, is to really remind folks how important CM Punk and Paul Heyman and that relationship is to the story, and why Seth would go that route while Paul Heyman will go the Seth route now. I think highlighting the CM Punk Paul Heyman relationship is actually very, very smart by WWE to do this.
Yeah, and so now on camera they were together back in late 2012 going into 2013. But like off camera, like Heyman was really boosting him and supporting him. I think when he was on the ECW brand for WWE, and when he was working in like OVW when he first came over there. So just like pretty much with all the people Heyman deals with, like there's a long history. So he's got a long history with the NYE family, going all the way back to Offense Seeker. He's got a long history with Brock Lesnar going back to 2002. And so he's got a long history with CM Punk. And now, and Braun Breaker, like off camera, Braun Breaker basically been initiated into, he's not part of the NOI family, but he's one of their boys, basically. He rides and he trains with them, so he's been initiated.
Yeah.
So yeah, Heyman, that's Paul tends to work with the people that he deals with.
I guess my question now is, where does this thing go now? Because, like, do we get a tag match between
Oh well, they announced it. They're doing Saturday's main event. They are doing the tag match. Punk and Sammy against.
Well, something Sammy. Okay, so it's not. It's not gonna be
Seth and Braun.
Well, okay, but then beyond that,
yeah,
you obviously have Jay still doing the Logan Paul thing. He'll beat Logan Paul, in my opinion. I think.
Yeah.
But you still have Jay and Gunther to wrap up still. But then you also have probably at some point Jay and Seth Rollins, I guess, down the road. I think they're teasing a Jay Seth feud for the summer.
Yeah, I think look, I still do think Seth is going to beat Jay for the world title as
At
part of
SummerSlam.
I don't know when. Who knows? He might get the briefcase and cash in on him or something.
It's true.
But I think he is going to do it, and look, Roman is still looming out there, right?
He's very quiet. Hasn't been on TV. Was he on TV the week after WrestleMania now? And then since then,
and then it hasn't been on since. So
right.
I think if they're going to add any more people to the group, for Seth and Braun. I think they're going to need to eventually because, on the other side, again, you got Roman, you got Punk, you got Sammy, you got Jay, and you can assume that Jimmy would be part of it also. So they're going to need to add some more guys at some point. And it's just the question is who. And and so it's a matter of who. And right now, I have no idea. I have no idea who it would be. So that's going to be part of the fun. That's going to be one of the fun things, seeing who comes along.
I think the whole open-ended thing, the open-ended feeling of where this goes, I think is the cool part of this whole feud. Is that we think we know, we really don't know, but we may know, and we may guess it right. I think having all these all the same thing with the U.S. title situation too. Also, you have all these guys that could really shape the next 6 months of whatever we're trying to do here. I think obviously I think we'll get a Jay Seth feud down the road, but where does CM Punk fit in all this? Where does Sami Zayn fit in all this? Where does Braun break for all this? And how long will Braun and Seth be together with this whole faction? So it's a lot of elements I really do like with this, and I think it's really interesting. I think I'm really glad they didn't do anything in Backlash with this yet. I'm glad they waited a little bit. I think now they'll put a gas on this feud now, because I mean it's been dominating Raw so far, but there's nothing, no Seth at Backlash. No, this feud's not highlighted Backlash. I think now that Backlash in the rearview mirror now. I think this feud will be now highlighted going forward between now and SummerSlam, and obviously they already announced Money Bank's coming in a couple of weeks. You have we just found out Night of Champions in late June.
Yeah,
that'll be the buffer. That'll be the who knows? Maybe we get the Jay Seth match there. Who knows?
because now I think Gunther and Jay is going to be at
main event.
Right?
Not Raw. At Raw, they said Raw already.
They did.
I thought I heard Raw.
Okay.
I thought I heard Raw. On the June edition, early June edition of Raw. I could be wrong, but that's what I heard. But then obviously Night of Champions and the June. That's your buffer PLE between Money in the Bank and SummerSlam. So who knows? You may get the Jay Seth match there. Who knows? I mean, anything's possible. But this whole thing feels very open ended. But other than that feud, really, honestly, on Raw, nothing really stood out. We did the reaction podcast on Sunday on Backlash. There's really nothing to touch on that at this point. Now we touch on all corners of Backlash. No Cody yet. Cody's still off TV, which is smart. We've been saying that for the last couple of weeks. Keep him off TV at least through Money in the Bank. Maybe sooner, maybe even further. I think things are right now. Not a WrestleMania in the rearview mirror now. Things are kind of neutral right now, which is good. Things are nice. It's steady right now. We'll get more chaos in the weeks to come. You want to kind of have a steady case of good shows. Like I said, Raw wasn't very consequential this week. Backlash was pretty standard. Great matches, but nothing really out of the ordinary other than the Cena stuff. Maybe we could percolate on, but we touch on that on the post show we did on Saturday night. So I think right now everything is kind of in a neutral position now until we see something big happen between now. Well, most likely we won't see it happening until at least Money in the Bank, or maybe even the main event in 2 weeks. So we'll see where that goes. All right, I want to play a clip for you, Rob. This guy gets a lot of airtime in this show because he's important to the business. Hulk Hogan was on the Ariel Helwani podcast this week, and he finally addressed being booed at Raw on Netflix back in January. And it's about a 2-minute clip, and I want your reaction after that. We play this quick because he addressed it, and I don't think he learned his lesson yet, or he has an idea of what's going on, or he's his. Basically, I think he lives in a whole other world. But let's play a clip here, and we'll react to it in a second.
Okay.
Here we go.
How do you feel about your relationship with the public right now? Your relationship with the people, especially coming off the last time we saw you on a major stage, was that Netflix show back in January at the Intuit Dome.
Well, they're still nipping at my heels. I can go out there and get booed. As actually the last time I was in LA, I was Hollywood Hogan with a black beard and doing the bad guy thing. I can go out there and get booed in LA, or The Rock can get booed in LA, or John Cena gets booed in LA, but when I get booed, there's a whole different reaction media wise. For some reason, I've laid some type of groundwork that people are still interested in what I'm doing. And so for those that are on the team and are riding with the train to the station, that's great. For those that are the haters and still have a problem with me, there's nothing I can do to fix that except, just keep proving by my actions that, I'm still in the game. I'm still pushing hard. I took a lot of time off because I had like 25 surgeries and I was down for a long time. And, I've always loved the hunt. I've always loved to get back in the game, but it's always been that way with me because my whole career, I had that top spot no matter what it was. Even through the 80s, it was the fastest draw. During the 80s, it was just a situation where everybody was knocking me. Everybody was trying to knock me off that top spot. I'll trade that for not being on the bottom of the card, if you know what I'm saying, or being on the bottom of the pile of life. So for me, it's just part of the territory. I mean, it's kind of like, when you get booed and then you get 3.2 billion engagements all of a sudden, and you rock that whole world in LA with how much interaction there was on the internet. I'll take it.
Okay, so after that, you didn't view that as some sort of like indictment on the state of your career, how people feel about you. You felt like they were just booing the character.
Oh, no. All the above. There are certain people that, boo the character. There are certain WWE superstars that had an opinion and they had advice for me. But I would like to ask those same guys when I go to New York or Chicago and the people cheer, out of the rooftops, I would like to know what their advice is then and what their opinion is. So it's a double-edged sword with me. And it's always been that way. It's part of the character. It's part of, me personally. It's part of my professional life. It's part of my personal life. It's all the above. I mean, and at the end of the day, I'm just like an old scarred up seal with a bunch of scars on me. And I'm really relatable to most normal people because a lot of people have been through a lot of stuff I have professionally. A lot of people have made not the same mistakes, but personally made mistakes. And I'm still relatable to so many people. If they boo me, fine. If they're on the team lead, that's great too. So not hating on anybody, brother. I'm still here. I'm still moving forward. And it's kind of like the old Rocky movie. It depends on how hard you can get hit, get back up and keep moving forward. And brother, I'm always leaning into the wind.
How do you?
All right. He doesn't get it, Rob. He doesn't get it. He still doesn't get it.
No.
And that's the thing. Like I did a TikTok video on this back in January. Like people say, "Oh, it's the politics that got booed because he supported MAGA." Well, so did Undertaker, and so did Triple H, and they were vocal about that. In fact, Undertaker had Donald Trump on his podcast during the campaign season, and both of those guys were also at that same Raw Netflix, and both those guys also got cheered to hell. So it ain't the politics, brother. You've done things through the years. Forget the politicking part, obviously. But also you buried guys and the cherry on top was, of course, the racist shit you said on record that you would never apologize for still to this day. Yeah. And somehow I don't understand how he can't come to terms with that and just say sorry or have a genuine apology. It's weird, Rob, because like for me, even though I dislike Terry, I'll say it again. Every time as an old school watcher, I mean, we do the watch alongs on the pod all the time too, also. And a lot of it has to do with Hulk Hogan because, we've covered the 80s and 90s a lot. And Hogan's always the main event in a lot of those matches we watch. And it's hard for me to watch these matches with a guy I used to admire. I used to call myself the Hogan disciple for years. And look, I can separate the two, obviously. But at the same time, how he can't come to a place where understanding how people who are offended feel about that shit. It's beyond me. And to this day, this is why I can't feel sorry for him because he doesn't get it still.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's just, I think he just, it's weird, man. Cause like I said, Taker is just as, bigger Trump supporter as he is. And what's funny is though, for all we know, Hogan was just getting paid to be there. I mean, so we don't even know that he's, I mean, I imagine he's more of a right-leaning person just because, but
Funny enough, though, he's for Obama. Wait, it's funny enough.
Oh, okay. So look, I mean, that might have been a paid appearance for all we know.
That might be a win. That might be him doing when the wind blows. He needs to find support somewhere. So why not?
Yeah.
MAGA's hot right now, so run with MAGA. And a lot of folks. And for the record, that's not because of Hulk Hogan. A lot of people doing that kind of shit too now. On top of that, in politics too. Also, that's when the wind blows.
Yeah,
it's called a grift, guys.
Oh yeah, pretty much. I mean, yes, but yeah, just I think it is what it is. And look, I still don't have a problem watching, the Hulk Hogan matches from when I was a kid. I don't have a problem with it.
Mm-hmm.
He obviously falls under the category of kind of a bad guy. I mean, I guess at the same time, I mean, well, there's like a scale of bad guys in in entertainment,
Yeah.
right? So, or in pro wrestling, like so. I mean, he's a bad guy on an interpersonal level as far as dealing with people. But like he's not Chris Benoit, right? I mean, like
that's true. That's true.
So,
there are levels of shit. I agree,
and that's not to excuse anything he's ever done, but like I can't watch Chris Benoit. I can't
at all.
I mean, there were a few pay-per-views that I went back and watched that because I had missed them because I wasn't watching at the time, and just going back and watching stuff, and and when it gets to like one of his matches, I'm just like, ugh.
Is it because for me it's a little bit easier to watch because when all that happened, I wasn't watching the product at the time anyway, so I was very removed from it as it was. Obviously, I knew the story at the time when it came out and who the players were at the time. Because I used to watch it before, so I get that part. But like my problem, I get very queasy when I'm watching Benoit because of the bumps he takes.
Well, it's both.
Yeah,
it's what he did, and then yeah, because now it's like because now we know what type of condition his brain was in.
Yeah.
Some of those bumps now, yeah, it's like every time you see it, it's like, oh well, that that added to his condition, right? I mean, and I mean that's going all the way back to WCW, and even and when he wrestled in Japan before he came to WCW, I mean, he did all types of,
But you know the part about Hogan though, for me, after all this shit he's done, all the bad things he's said about people and the burying and the racist comments and everything else, X, Y, and Z. I'm still the first person to defend him if someone questions his legacy about what he means for wrestling. I am the first person to say, hold your horses here. Okay, let's not play that game now. We can hate Hulk Hogan all you want, and I'm okay with that. But let's not also pretend that this dude is not on the Mount Rushmore all-time greatest pro wrestlers ever.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, because to me, look, we don't have to lie. Okay,
right? Exactly.
There's plenty of actual stuff to to bash him for. We don't have to lie, and because I mean that happens sometimes with people in like entertainment or whatever, right? Is when they do some foul shit to the point where you just don't want to deal with them anymore on any level, and then there's some people who come along and say, well, they weren't that good anyway. It's like, no, yeah, they were, okay, and which is yes, they were really good at what they did, and and like if it's like when people say like the founding fathers were overrated or something. It's like, no, they weren't. I mean, look, yes, they were slave owners, and that's some terrible shit. And we don't talk about that enough, right? As far as the whole history, but
of course.
But Thomas Jefferson was not a hack when it came to writing things. Okay,
right, exactly.
George Washington was not a hack as a military general. And so we could, and we don't have to lie about stuff. So no, we don't have to
be
lie.
Honest. Yeah, there's not embellish.
Right. We don't have to lie and say that Hulk Hogan was not one of the all-time greats at his job. Okay. Again, that guy, he helped draw 93,000 people to the Silverdome, and he had 93,000 people on their feet at the end, at the end of that match. Okay. I'm sorry, but like you don't do that. You can you can't be no good and do that. Okay. I'm sorry.
Right.
Okay. You can't be. Okay. I'm sorry, or like Ty Cobb was a piece of shit human being. Ty Cobb was also a Hall of Fame baseball player.
That's correct.
He did not suck as a baseball player because he was a piece of shit human being. Okay, it's just no, right?
Much I can't stand Brad Farmer person, he's still Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I mean, so please, I mean, come on.
Well, let me right here. So I mean, like I said, Hogan. I mean, again, I sometimes do get uncomfortable, with the Hogan bashing because I know people are going to get into their feelings about it, and I understand that, but at the same time, let's not be silly about this either. The dude is still on Mount Rushmore all time, WWE and pro wrestling as a whole. So
it's like when people do a Mount Rushmore of WWE and then they don't put them on there.
It's silly. It's so silly, dude. It's silly.
Yeah,
because you're using your feelings.
Yeah, like, you know just stop it. Yeah,
for real. All right, so we've been putting up this topic for a while. WWE during WrestleMania season had started putting out their top 50, what they believe is their top 50 WrestleMania matches all time rankings, and we were following this. I remember actually funny enough, there's a lot of matches on that list I never saw before that I used that list to watch for the first time. And obviously these damn rankings, whether it's by WWE or whether by other publications, they're always controversial because people have their reasons why they put a match this way and that way and whatnot. Rather than go through the entire list, that's way too long.
Yeah.
What on this 50 stood out to you that maybe too high, too low, not on the list, doesn't deserve to be on the list? What stood out to you?
Okay, so now I think number one was Taker and Shawn from 25. Yeah, I think that's a perfectly fine choice. Yeah, I think that's a perfectly fine choice.
And I think everybody will agree across the board. That's the number one across the board.
Yeah, and then but as far as now, I thought the main event from WrestleMania 35 was too high. It was number 10.
The ladies, Ronda Rousey, Becky Lynch, and I agree.
And look, obviously, yes. I mean, look, some of these matches you put on the list because their historic nature, like the first WrestleMania main event. I mean, I could probably pick 100 matches that were WrestleMania matches that were better than that. There were better matches than that. But
you mean Hogan T versus Orndorff and Piper?
But you know what? I mean, you have to put that match on because that match. We're not doing this podcast if that match doesn't have. That match is a reason why we're doing this podcast right now.
Mm-hmm.
So and look, it's near the bottom of the list. So they,
it made the list. It didn't make the list though.
Yeah, it did. Yes, it did. It was like number
46.
Yeah, which and that's fine, right? I mean, because you can't not put that match on there,
right?
But I mean, Ronda, Charlotte, and Becky should have made. Yes, you have to put it on the list because it was the first ever women's main event at WrestleMania, right? And
but too high though.
Yeah, I mean, and and I think you could argue. I mean, people have different opinions about it, but I mean, it was a good match. It wasn't a bad match at all. It's just it was the show was long as hell and the crowd was tired. But on its merit, I mean, I think you could put it in top 50 on merit, but still, it's number 10 is too high, and also it's the highest women's match on this list, that's ludicrous.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I mean,
I think this year's WrestleMania, the triple threat between Rhea, Bianca, and
that was better. Yes, that was a better match. Yes, and
by far.
And depending on, I guess depending on how where EO ends up taking the victory and what she ends up doing with it, that match would rightfully be on the list. Also, it's just we have to wait and see what the impact of it is.
There's
But
a
you
go
know,
ahead.
I mean, yeah, I mean, look, I mean, yeah, there are several women's matches, WrestleMania matches that were better than that one, though.
Yeah. For me, I was shocked they put Goldberg Lesnar from 33 on here, but then I rewatched it again. I'm like, oh, I get it.
Well, I'd have it higher. I mean,
Yeah.
that's one of the best sub 5 minute matches ever.
Yeah. It was booked brilliantly, actually.
Yes.
And given how bad their match at 20 was because of the situation and the circumstances behind it, it's pretty actually. And not only that, they actually recovered well because I thought their two matches, the Survivor Series match they did before this one,
Yeah.
was actually decent too. Also, again, another sub 500 match, but again, when you book it the right way and it tells a good story, you know, it hit the right notes. The same thing with this match also too.
Yeah.
I thought actually Cody and Seth from 38 was a little low.
Yeah,
At 50.
Yeah, I mean, it almost makes it feel like they just, I don't know, like it's just tacked on there at the end or something, you know?
Yeah, I think my issue with the list is that I have the problem with the matches. I think they got the general matches correct on the list. I just think the order is a little jacked up. Like they're obviously very biased towards WrestleManias, more recent WrestleManias. That's pretty obvious. I will say though, to their credit, the top four we may grab with the order, but their top four I have no problem with whatsoever.
Oh, no, me neither. Yeah.
I mean, Savage Steamboat could be a little. Savage Steamboat is a better work rate match of Hogan Rock, but the moment for Rock Hogan is a lot bigger. Obviously, Brett and Austin is my personal favorite match, one of my favorite matches of all time. Number 2, I'm okay with that. Obviously, Taker and Shawn at 25. I mean, me personally, I might put Hart and Stone Cold at number 1 because I watched that match in real time, and I was at the time of the match I was a little more invested. Whereas at 25, I was not invested, but I understand why the Shawn Taker match was amazing. Cody and Roman from 40 too high. In fact, I argue Cody Roman from 39 is better than the Cody Roman from 40.
And
but again, the moment's bigger though.
That one didn't make the list at all.
That's what I'm saying. That was just crazy. But
I would have put that one. That's one. Yeah, I think I would have put that on the list. I don't know where exactly I would have put it, but I think that one should have been there. I am not big on Brett and Shawn from WrestleMania 12.
Yeah, you're not the only one. There's a lot of people I know through the years and listen to podcasts, listen to people talk about the match. They say they like the match, but they think it's overrated.
Yeah, well,
that's the word I hear all the time is overrated for that match.
Well, because all right, just the way it played out, because they didn't have any falls, and then so
had they had falls in that match, I think that match would be rated higher.
Well, yeah, because because then one would have had to play catch up to the other one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it would put some more intrigue and some more drama into it,
right?
But they went the whole 60 minutes with no falls, and so it's just, I mean, it's a hard match to go back and rewatch, and it's because it was kind of like they were just doing stuff, and then it picked up in the second half. But yeah, just to me, yeah, and on this list, it's number, where is it? It's number 14. I would not. I mean,
that's a little high.
Yeah, to me, it's just that's it's too high. And look, they put it that high because it's Shawn and Brett, and then Shawn winning his first world championship. But for me, it's just
I agree. Would you be? I'm amazed that as bad a worker as this guy is, there are 2 Ultimate Warrior matches in the top 20. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. Yeah. So Savage at number 9, and then Hogan at
15.
Yeah. And honestly, I mean, I'd have the Hogan match higher.
Yeah. It was an inflection point. Well, it was supposed to be a bigger one, but it was an inflection point.
Yeah. And there's
I'll tell you. Go ahead.
I picked about 7 or 8 of them that I that I took off that I eliminated and um and replaced with other matches.
What matches that were not here that you would have added?
Okay. I would have added, now some of these are just personal preference now.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay. The ladder match that opened WrestleMania 32
Okay.
was one I put on there.
That's your title match, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I put that one. Shawn versus Chris Jericho at WrestleMania 19.
Phenomenal match.
Yeah. And I put Charlotte and Rhea's first match at WrestleMania 36, but they're not going to put any of those matches on there because
for obvious reasons
of them being in the PC and all of that. Like they try not to recall any of that stuff ever.
Yeah.
So
other than Roman's turn.
Yeah, but I mean that was in the Thunderdome. That wasn't like all that stuff from when they were just in the PC.
Oh, yeah, for the PC, right? Yeah, right. Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, they don't ever they don't even upload those matches on the YouTube channel. They just don't. They that stuff's all been flushed down the memory hole as far as they're concerned.
Yeah.
I put now look. I mean, most people don't like the match with Brock and Taker from WrestleMania 30. But for me, if you're putting matches on there for historical purposes,
that's got to be there.
Yeah. Now maybe it's near the bottom, but that's one of the most pivotal matches of the last 15 years. That's one of the most pivotal matches of the modern era. Because what it set off, and in fact that it was the end of the streak, and it propelled Brock to that big run he went on.
I was shocked actually, Rob, that remember I told you this on text that 21 they had Kurt Angle and Ronda Rousey versus Triple H Stephanie, and then I watched the match for the first time after they put it in the list, and I understand why it's on the list. I now understand why. I get why. I still think it's too high. The matches are here. I'll put higher than that match. I'll easily put Kurt Angle, Shawn Michaels. First of all, Kurt Angle, Shawn Michaels is way too low. Let's start there. That should be higher than that match. There's a Bret Roddy Piper match that should be higher than that. Savage Hogan, I can argue higher than that. But I understand why they put that match on the list at all. It's actually a really good match.
Yeah, and also, I mean, we talked about Ronda last time and how big Ronda, how important Ronda was to all of this. That was her debut.
Right.
And I think the main event from WrestleMania 37, Roman versus Edge and Daniel Bryan, because that was that image of him like pinning both of them, and that was the match that like certified Roman that he was the absolute ruler of the company, so to speak.
Right.
So I put that in there. Roman and Cody from WrestleMania 39, I thought should have been on there.
I agree with you 100% on that one.
And Charlotte and Asuka from WrestleMania 34, because in real time at the time that in real time, there were people saying that was one of the best matches they'd ever seen, and that was also that was at the time definitely the best women's singles match they ever had at WrestleMania at that point.
I'm trying to look at this. Yep.
No, look, there's a lot of people who they shit on it because of who won.
I am shocked. I am shocked they put Brock and Roman from 31 low as it is. I'm not saying this deserves to be like low or whatever. I'm just saying that given the moment now, that's the highest, obviously. So I'm wondering if they're judging it based on just the match itself or the moment as a whole.
Well,
because if you judge the moment is much higher than 40 is.
Well, I think the match should be higher than 40. I mean, look, that was as close as you can get to a match that looked like real to if we're talking about realism is that's about as close as you can get to a wrestling match looking like some real shit. You know,
Mhm.
I mean, if you go back and just watch, I mean, they were just blasting each other hard, and
There's a house match.
yeah, and I mean, Roman took a hell of a beating. I mean, and
Does
something
it
I
feel,
mean,
does it feel like Triple H did this list himself? I see a lot of Triple H matches in here.
yeah, because there's a lot. I think there's a lot of him, and there's a lot of Sean, and
I feel like Hunter had a hand on his list.
well, or if he didn't, I mean, look, I mean, if you work there, there's an old saying that me and some friends of mine had is what's understood need not be explained,
Yeah.
right? I mean, if you,
And again, I'm not saying it doesn't deserve to be on these matches on the list because Triple H has some bangers. Like you talk about Mr. WrestleManias, obviously talk about Shawn Michaels and Undertaker, Randy Savage, and a couple other guys. But Triple H is another guy that has a case for the title of Mr. WrestleMania too, because of some of the big game matches he's had through his career. So I don't know,
but for me, now of course, which matches did I take off? Look, I mean, I'm not big on honestly the Piper Brett match. I mean, it was really good, but I mean,
maybe a little high. I'm not gonna lie to you. I maybe lower. It is top 50, but I wouldn't put that high though. Great match though.
Yeah, I guess for me, like, yeah, I mean, is it one of the 50 best matches just in terms of the ring work or whatever? Probably. But was it really that important? No.
It did establish Brett though, really as if there wasn't still a doubt that he could be the guy moving forward, I think that match probably made it clear to Vince that we could put about him, which they did a couple months later.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know. Just to me, I guess because I don't know, because me being an NWA fan also, and this is I guess this is kind of with me with a lot of WWF matches from like the 80s and early 90s that get all these raves and accolades. Like I saw matches that were just I saw a bunch of matches in the NWA that were just as good or better, and that they weren't even on big important shows because NWA was more of a work rate place. It wasn't it wasn't entirely. There were plenty of sports entertainers there also, like Dusty Rhodes, but I mean, Ric Flair was routinely having matches on house shows that were with people like Ricky Steamboat and and with Dusty Rhodes and with Magnum TA and other people who he was routinely having matches again at house shows that were as good or better than most WWF matches that were getting all these raves and accolades. So I guess for me, something like Piper and Brett, I'm just like, okay, yes, this was very good, but I've seen better, and I mean, I've seen.
Do you have the gumption to do your own top 50 list? Like, I don't know if you've done one already of best man matches.
I am putting one together. I haven't published it yet, but I am.
Wow.
Yes, because I am putting one together. Maybe Mr. Math Guy, I have like a wacky point system.
Oh yeah.
And
what are you gonna? Will it be out sometime this year, or you can wait till next year?
Yeah, I'm just like I'm doing like a couple of different methods, tallying points, and then also what I also do is when I make lists like this, I have my little wacky point system, but then when I'm done, I look at the list and because sometimes when you score on points, you end up with results that don't make sense, which. Like, and you see this like when people like rate NBA players in particular, and they use all these efficiency stats and everything, and then sometimes the end result will just be like some bullshit.
Something tells me something tells me you have Hogan and Andre number one.
Because like because I remember, and then like Sports Illustrated this one, they did like top point guards in the NBA, and this was like during the early 90s.
Yeah.
And then they had their wacky point system, and then the final result was like Terrell Brandon was the best point guard in the league.
I remember Terrell Brandon for the Cavs.
Yeah, I mean, he was a very good
he was a
player,
backup.
but-
He was Mark Price's backup.
Yeah, and then and it's just it's like Terrell Brandon, like really, and
He was good, but he was not best point guard. I mean, Isaiah retired in '93, but John Stockton, Gary Payton.
I mean,
Rookie Blaylock was better than Terrell Brandon. Come on now.
Yeah, I mean, like Stockton and Gary Payton and Jason Kidd and Kevin Johnson and right, and there other people, there are a bunch of other guys who were playing around the same time, and it's like Terrell Brandon, really? So that's what happens. Like when you do these things, like you can't just add up the points and say, okay, that's the best one, because sometimes you get ridiculous results. I mean, and and yeah, sometimes you just look at the result and you're just like, no, okay, that's no, come on, we can't do that. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I'm working on it, and I will publish it later on this year. But
I wish I had the patience to do a point system, but I'll probably just do it based on feeling. You know what I'm saying? Obviously. But I may do my own list and write it down and do like a blog for it on my blog that I haven't used in years, but maybe I'll dust it off and do a top 50 list. We'll see. But like I said, overall, the list itself, no problem with the list itself, and more so the order. And honestly, I've seen worse lists than this one, honestly.
Oh, yeah, I have too. And
much worse than this one.
Yes, I have too. And like those top 50 superstars that we talked about before last year. Like those are terrible.
but thank God that wasn't WWE. That was other publications. So
yeah,
by the way, it looks like it'll be Indiana in the conference final. So looks like
all right.
Indiana and New York's next, but looks like Indiana's gonna pull us out.
We gotta finish things, so we can't.
Yeah, but you guys should. Speaking of finishing things, we're 2 more weeks away from finishing up this series we've been doing, which is courtesy of OVW Dropout on TikTok. He has put together his own top 3 people who should not be in the Hall of Fame, WB Hall of Fame. We've done the first 6 parts on the show. Let's get to now part number 7, and the 3 names again. Rob, I've not watched this yet, so I'm gonna learn this one the first time with you.
Oh boy.
Okay, here we go.
WWE Hall of Fame part, what are we on, 7? We're on part 7. Let's get it. And as always, if you don't like this list, I just don't give a. Let's get down to business. Lucky number 1, it's time. It's Vader time. I know a lot of young kids won't get that, but number 1 is Vader. I read something somewhere, and I don't know if you can trust this source, but they said that Vader is widely considered the greatest big man of all time. I don't know if that's true off the top of my head. I mean, I would have to go back in time and look at every big man that ever existed, but I'll give it to him for right now. His aggression, his agility at his size, very impressive. He had an outstanding run in the early 90s in WCW, but in the WWE, not so much. If you look at his opponents, he has had some Hall of Fame worthy opponents such as Shawn Michaels and Mick Foley. But I don't know if I can give him a Hall of Fame nod. My system says a 59%. Now everybody knows you have to reach a 75% or higher to get a Hall of Fame nod. And I'm a little surprised Vader was graded so low. But Vader, sorry buddy. Number 2, Molly Holly, former 2-time women's champion and a former hardcore champion. If you really sit down and dissect exactly what she did to impact the business, you can't really give her much. She was a good wrestler and she was a good heel, but I don't think people would be lined up down the street to go pay a ticket to see her wrestle. No disrespect. I love Molly Holly, but in this case, Hall of Fame, out of here. And she was actually graded as a 61, higher than Vader, which I'm very surprised. I may need to check my system, but we'll do that another time. Last but definitely not least is a man who's being inducted into the Hall of Fame this Sunday, and that is Mr. Lex Luger. Mainly a WCW guy, former WCW World Heavyweight Champion, former US Champion, former Tag Team Champion. I know a lot of people got upset in my previous videos saying WWE bought WCW, so essentially WCW's WWE. Believe whatever you want. I know they bought the company. I'm not stupid. But dog, I don't care what they did in WCW. This is called the WWE Hall of Fame, not the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. If this was the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, Lex Luger would be a shoe-in. But just to make y'all happy, I included every single thing that Lex Luger did in WCW. Just to prove how right I am, he's still not a Hall of Fame worthy nod. He came close. He was about 2 points shy of the 75% threshold. But I don't care. He didn't make the cut. Lex Luger, salute. I know you were a great wrestler back in your day, but you didn't make my cut. You like this video, make sure you like, share, and follow me for more wrestling content. And go back to my 6 previous videos, watch and like them as well. Peace.
All right. Dude. All right. First one, Vader.
Okay.
If you're doing WWE alone, I can see the case.
Well, yeah, exactly. He did not have a great WWE career at all. And some I think he wasn't in the greatest shape when he got there, and then but also he got politicked, but either way, but they have people in there who never set foot in WWE, or who never did anything of note in WWE, like the Rock and Roll Express is in the WWE Hall of Fame.
He's got to get over that whole thing. The fact of the matter is they absorbed WCW's roster. They bought WCW, which means they get the library, get everything about WCW. He's got to get over that. That's is what it is.
And also, I mean, I'm sorry, but like, Vader, one of the greatest American wrestlers to go in Japan. If you were to do a top 50, WCW wrestlers, like during the time where the company was called WCW, he'd be in the top 10, maybe the top 5. And so, I mean, come on.
He's got to go over that, man. Seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, like, if you want to make a case his WWE career was a little more meh, I could run with that. And I watched it in real time too, also on top of that to agree with that. But nah, that's a bit of all right. Go ahead.
Coco Beware is in the Hall of Fame, and he was a jobber.
Yeah,
basically. Right?
But also different era too, also. So all right. Second one, Molly Holly. This doesn't bother me that much actually, to be honest with you.
No, I'm not. Here's the thing, when they put her in there, I wasn't like, why are you doing that? Right. I got no issue with her being in there. Mm-hmm. If I was choosing the people to put in the Hall of Fame, would I put Molly Holly in the Hall of Fame? Probably not. I think now she was a big help to a lot of people behind the scenes, and a lot of, like, Beth Phoenix is basically testifying on her behalf. Molly had a lot to do with her being able to get there and wrestle. And she did. She got because she did like a title versus hair match on one of the WrestleManias, and she basically said, "I'll to get the match on the card." She basically said, "Okay, I'll take the loss and I'll shave my head, so we can and." So she fought really hard to get she got a women's match on a WrestleMania card through her sheer willpower and willing to sacrifice, shaving her head. So to that end, I mean, if you were to poll like the women that were around while she was wrestling, they would tell you to absolutely put her in the Hall of Fame just for how she fought to get more women's stuff, on the shows. But as far as what we saw on our television screen, I mean, I don't mind that she's in there, but I mean, I wouldn't have been in any hurry to put her in there. No.
All right. Finally, Lex Luger.
Fuck out of here.
Even his WWE career, at this point, maybe for some, I think was good enough to get in the Hall of Fame.
I mean, he main evented SummerSlam. He was a co-winner of the Royal Rumble. you know, he wasn't there very long, but
He was a big angle. He was also in a big angle at WrestleMania with Yokozuna and Brett. That whole thing.
And so he was in a world title match at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
And again, he wasn't there very long. I mean,
would you say his career was better than? Would you, if you measure up his career WWE versus Vader's, who had a better WWE career?
He did. Yeah.
Like Luger did.
Yeah.
Okay. And not for nothing. They tried with Vader. They tried. They like. It was like it wasn't booked horribly. He wasn't in big feuds. He wasn't in feud with Taker, feud with Shawn, feud with Mick Foley. So he had opportunities to really break through. Something didn't click with Vader. Luger.
Well, the thing that didn't click was called the click. That
is true. That's very true.
Okay, yes, that's what happened.
That's very true. Yeah, that's very true. Yeah. But with Luger, like, yeah, is it a letdown a little bit in comparison to what he did WCW? Yeah, but at the same time, I thought some of his work at WWE was still pretty decent. The narcissist stuff was pretty good, actually. That was a good angle. The whole American, Patriot thing he was doing, with the whole tour, Summer Lex tour in 1993, that was pretty cool. Given where they were as a company too, also trying to figure out who the next guy was. Brett was the guy, but they weren't completely sold on Brett being the number one guy. They're trying to groom Lex be that guy, be the next Hogan. So I don't know. I think his WWE career is a little bit not. I don't even want to say underrated either, but I'll say it's better than people give credit for.
Well, he was miscast.
That too,
because he was not. They tried to make him Hulk Hogan, Captain America, and that's not who he was. And just period. That's just not who he was, and he was miscast. And he's one of those guys. He was WCW fans loved him to death, and he was way over in WCW. And basically, the kind of roles that he played in WCW is how he should have been booked. And now they could have stuck with the narcissist thing, and maybe that would have gone somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not Captain America, and so that just that kind of derailed things, and that just wasn't the role he should have been in.
Yeah. All right, let's get you out of here. One more last thing here. The legend, ECW hardcore legend Sabu passed away, age 60, on Sunday. Obviously, we all know who Sabu is. I've seen a few of his matches. I wasn't a huge ECW guy, growing up. I watched a couple matches here and there. Sabu, obviously, a couple appearances in WWE. Good worker, obviously, when he was there, but there's not really much for me to unpack with Sabu. Were you a Sabu fan?
See, I wasn't that big on ECW either, but put it this way. There were names that you knew about, even if you didn't watch ECW much back then.
Mm-hmm.
He was one. Rob Van Dam, Taz, Tommy Dreamer, the Dudleys, right? New Jack. Like, there were guys where even if you'd never watched 1 minute of ECW, there were guys that you had heard that you'd heard their name mentioned. And I've watched a little bit of ECW. I wasn't a big ECW guy, but he was one of the pioneers of that style. And he and Rob Van Dam were, ECW tag team champions for a good bit. And just that kind of just extreme daredevil kind of style. He was one of the pioneers of it, and he's one of the better people to do it. And so I don't know if he's already in. I don't know if he's in the Hall of Fame or not yet, but he definitely deserves to be there. He was, and also I believe, I forgot what relation he was, but I think it might have been his uncle was the original Sheik. I think.
Right.
I
think it was. Yeah.
Yeah. And he was one of the biggest heels back in the 60s, I think.
Yeah.
So definitely gone too soon. He's only 60 years old. But
he wrestled 2 weeks ago at WrestleMania weekend.
Yeah, and there's some controversy around that.
Yeah. Did he what was I gonna say? Sabu, did he has it been revealed how he died?
I haven't seen it. Like,
I haven't seen anything. Nothing.
yeah, I haven't
Nothing.
seen any
No
reports.
accident. No foul play. Nothing. That
Yeah,
sort.
I haven't seen any reports about cause of death. It's just, and not to go into it here, but there's just, yeah, I mean, there's some, there's some controversy about his appearance at that show a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I saw George Janela put out some stuff that he was supposedly on Kratom.
Yeah,
Which by the way, I learned about Kratom only recently. You want to know who told me about Kratom? It was our cousin Duke.
Oh, so I hadn't heard of it until now, until this story. But Duke is the plug for Kratom.
No, he's talking about Kratom because he told me about Kratom in regards to Tony Khan, like that last year.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know what Kratom meant. He said go Google Kratom and look what it means, and I understood that. I was like, okay. So the only time I ever heard about Kratom was when Duke had mentioned it to me mentioned it on the podcast. Actually, we had did back in September last year. Talking about Tony Khan.
Oh yeah, but all that aside, he's definitely somebody to remember. He was an innovator and a pioneer. And look, ECW changed the wrestling business.
They sure did.
And he was a big part of that.
Yeah. Would you say Sabu is? Would you consider him the Mount Rushmore ECW guys?
Maybe. Probably.
He's certainly one of the biggest names of that company.
Yeah, I would say yes. Him, Rob
New Jack, maybe.
Man, because if we're only keeping it to 4 people, then it's hard to just nail down.
Sandman, you have Tommy Dreamer.
Yeah,
a lot of guys there of that nature, right?
The Dudleys.
The Dudleys have to be there, of course. The Dudleys have to be there.
I mean, hard to pick 4.
Dudleys have to be there.
But I think he would be one of the 4. I can tell you the other 3 would be right now, but I think he would be one of the 4 if you're doing Mount Rushmore of ECW.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, well, Sabu 860 passed away this weekend. Rest in peace to him, of course.
Yes.
And of course, you can find Rob on any social media platform at Arbon1 on X, on Blue Sky, especially. When you get more of his wrestling takes, check out his podcast, of course, the Mindless Wrestling Podcast with him, DJ, and Jason, which comes out every Saturday on the Chairshot Radio Network. Also, Rob's own podcast, Rob the Genius Podcast, where he talks about a variety of things. Sometimes wrestling, sometimes personal, sometimes politics. Depends how you're feeling, So, and of course, you can follow me on the X at EJChristian7, Earnestly Podcast, of course, at any podcast catcher out there. Follow Scott anywhere as what every week as we always do it here with me and Rob. Earnestly Pod on TikTok, Earnestly Pod on YouTube, Earnestly Pod especially too on Instagram as well too. Until the next episode, we will talk to you guys soon.